Hey, Matt, take it away.
Hey, everybody. I'm Matt Kita. This is the Wilmes Risk Control Show, and I'm here with Steve Wilmes.
And I'm Steve Wilmes. And we're here again. What are we talking about today, man?
We're talking about bus safety. So just the other day, I had the pleasure of attending a presentation about bus safety here locally in California. And there was a lot of talk about how to keep bus drivers safe because they are interacting with the public. I believe the numbers that were quoted was 800,000 users of buses in the past year, which actually is down a little bit below COVID levels, but it's still extremely high.
Nobody wants to get on the bus, man. Too contagious.
Right, yeah. They are still seeing a little bit about that. That was something else I talked about. A lot of other agencies across the country are struggling to get their ridership back up. Not so in LA. But yes, the more people brings up a particular issue for our bus drivers who are in that cab driving who knows who in their bus, because it's literally it's public. And I've seen plenty of times, like I used to, we've talked about this before, Seth, way long time ago when I was a young buck and and I needed a little bit more cash than I had, I got around by bus for a bit. Bus and bike and walk. And
my former wife loves public transportation.
Does she?
Yeah. And I remember we moved here to LA. Now, the Metro Link was in St. Louis.
Right.
I rode it a couple times, relatively clean because it was so new back then.
Right.
I've ridden the BART up in San Francisco. That thing is notoriously loud. Like, I think they need to do some noise studies on it, on the interior. It's so loud in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. But I remember my daughter was born and maybe like 2-3 years old, maybe a little bit,
right?
Maybe a little bit older. And my former wife wanted to take her on the train here in LA up to Pasadena or something. And I was like, oh, goodness, this is like a Saturday, Saturday morning, afternoon thing. And we decided to get on this thing. And we started from Redondo Beach. So you go through a lot of these little towns, some not so desirable. But the only thing I could remember was, why are we doing this? I got this young girl, right, my daughter, hanging out with me, and there's drug dealers, there's people coughing, hacking, spitting literally spitting on the middle of the bus.
Right.
I'm like, we're going to get some disease here, who knows if we get into an altercation, right? It's just not a place for a young kid.
Right.
And, this is what I don't like about public transportation in the United States, is that it is so unruly. Right. It's just out of control.
Right.
I was in Switzerland and I remember getting on the little bus and going through town. And I remember all of a sudden the bus just stopped. And I was like, what's going on?
Right.
And there was like some backpacker kid, that was going through, but he was unkempt, a little unshowered and all this. Right. And they're like, get off my bus. You stink, you smell, and you cannot be on this bus. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really intense. And they threw him off the bus. So can you imagine if someone spit on their bus?
Right. Yeah.
Or forget it.
Yeah.
I rode the trains and the public transportation in Japan. Nobody eats or drinks on there. They're ultra clean. Right. Okay. Bring me a public transportation system like that.
Right.
And then I can feel safe having my daughter on there. Like I'm okay by myself, but still it's not pleasurable.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine being a bus driver and having to deal with all that craziness that goes on in LA.
Yeah.
Or New York or Chicago. It's unreal.
Yeah, and they're not now. They're encouraged to. I mean, obviously, they're always encouraged to not be combative, to be use a little bit of verbal judo.
Verbal judo is good. Yeah.
To de-escalation, to try and control a situation. And even they're much more understanding now about, or I should say the agencies locally are more understanding now about kind of, you know what, it's not so important to get this $2 fare or $3 fare if it means that we don't have a massive altercation. But because of the people that are out there, like you're talking about on that train to Pasadena, and look, like I said, I was on a bus for a good deal. Most people on a bus are just hard workers, working from one spot to the other, and they're perfectly fine, and they're not going to do anything. But it only takes
like the old saying goes, it's the rotten few million that ruin it for the other three.
Right. Exactly. And again, I'm reminded of my younger days when I'd get on these buses and I'd see some of the same homeless or transient individuals who they would go on the bus at one end of a line, like a long line.
Yeah, of course.
And they would stay on in the back. Oftentimes they're not in control of themselves. They're speaking.
Sure.
They smell terrible. And unlike Switzerland, they weren't kicked off the bus.
Right.
And they would take the line all the way up to the end of the line. And then at that point, the bus driver would remove them.
Sure.
And say, hey, you need to go.
Everybody has to deboard.
Everybody has to yeah, exactly. And they would wait until the next bus came around. They'd wait at the station for an hour, half hour, however long. Next bus, hop on, and then go take it all the way back down again.
Well,
and
there's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, if they're
you sound like a homeless racist.
Yeah, apparently I am. They use that
what's
as
your
replacement.
point?
My point is that you had an individual who is potentially problematic dealing with that individual, and bus drivers are constantly having to deal with this.
Yes.
And sometimes we're having a situation where they're actually getting into physical fights with them.
Right, lots of altercations.
The bus drivers aren't trying to get into the fight, but the individuals are not healthy, and they are choosing to escalate the situation and attack the bus drivers. One of the others in attendance at this presentation mentioned that she had a bus driver who was attacked, and this individual who attacked him was so unhinged that it took 6 officers to pin him down to the ground. And
again, when I worked in the St. Louis City Jail, right, there was a lot of drug use that went on.
Yes,
and there was a lot of transients that were arrested. And when people get on drugs such as PCP or something like this, they become incredibly strong.
Yes.
And it takes a great number of officers to take someone down.
Yes.
Right. To control them to a point where they get control and are able to make an arrest or something like this.
Yeah.
Now, put that into perspective with what's going on in our society today, which is encouragement of marijuana use, encouragement of drug dens, encouragement of illegal drugs and all this kind of stuff out in the open.
Yeah.
Fentanyl's flooding our borders.
Yeah.
It's hitting LA strong.
Yes.
It's all over the place. And you put people in these situations where, as you kind of indicated, and again, where someone doesn't have a lot to do all day, and they decide that a good place to be is on public transportation because it's cool.
Right.
You get to see other things, right? You have a right to ride. That's fine.
Right.
Try to be presentable,
right,
to some degree. But then you also combine that with the use of mind-altering substances. Not saying that all do, but a good portion do, and I can understand why. You got nothing to do all day.
Yeah.
You get bored and blah, blah, blah. You try to self-medicate. So you combine that situation and you put that person into a enclosed tube with one driver that's supposed to maintain control of 30 or 40 people.
Right.
As it's going through the city at sometimes high rates of speed.
Yep.
Most of the time at a rate of speed 30 to 40,
Right.
in which case it is deadly to other vehicles on
still.
the road. And you take this, and this goes back, right? Like if you just watched our other episode, then you know that you have a responsibility as a supervisor, as an agency, to train your staff.
Right.
Well, okay. I'm gonna jet out of this because I don't know. Like, if you listen to my episodes going back 10 years, I'm very calm and kind of having fun. I'm worked up a little bit about this or that.
Right.
Now I'm getting to the point where I've been doing this so long that it's like I want to impose a stupid tax on people where like, hey, let's get this right. Okay. So I'm gonna bridge out here to an analogous situation.
Okay.
Law enforcement officers, usually up until probably the past few years, really did not receive any training in mental health.
Okay.
Okay. So they would have a mental health person from Department of Public Health or something like that,
Right.
that was able to respond to calls.
Right.
Well, funding got cut. Contracts weren't kept.
Right.
So law enforcement go out and respond, and that's where you get situations like George Floyd, where not knowing how to properly respond to someone under these conditions results in horrific circumstances.
Yes.
Right? So now take that where you have people that are forced to interact with individuals under the influence of drugs, mental health issues, in hostile environments, and they have no training.
Yeah.
That's terrible on its face.
Yes.
Okay. Take that situation and put it into the bus driver situation who's operating a public transport which cannot say no to anybody
Right.
and has to deal with hostile, under the influence, mentally unstable, sick, violent, whatever.
Yeah.
What kind of mental health training are they getting? There's a person that's got to deal with 30 or 40 people on a daily basis while operating this big 2-ton vehicle at high rates of speed, and then what? Be attacked from behind?
Right. Yeah. It's
know?
not like they're in a real good spot. And that's one of the solutions that's been talked about is really to kind of separate the bus drivers from the public. So
Yes.
they're talking about adding enclosures and protecting the bus driver that way, which certainly has its upside from a safety perspective, but it has its downsides too. And
What are the downsides?
well, the downsides are, first of all, if you have a bus driver that's not comfortable.
Well, that bus driver.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you can say it because
Yeah.
it was said, but it's the union issues that come up, right?
Right.
You have people, I'm not comfortable. It's a violation of my rights. Okay. But then when you get injured, you're going to say, well, you didn't protect me.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And yes, the union is part of that as well. But it's really just comes down to sometimes you want to have a little bit more openness there. For one thing, just even from a customer service perspective, you feel like your bus driver is all walled off in a in a separate room. How does that make you feel as a passenger on a bus?
Safe.
Yeah, right.
Safe.
You're kind of cut off. Like I'm on my own here. You know,
On your own to do what?
On my own to protect myself from others.
Well, yeah, you chose to ride on the bus.
Yeah.
I mean, if the bus driver gets attacked and we're cruising down the road,
Right.
then what?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look, I think it goes back to like a train, where you have full closure. They look at that cab of that train. It's almost like a airplane.
Yes.
Where you
Cockpit.
have lockable doors. You have a cockpit. I know the comfort zone's there, but hey, again, like we always talk about this in the United States. Okay. Oh, we don't have enough workers. Oh, we don't have enough to support Social Security. Well, that means you have to put people to work. Mm-hmm. You got to get out of this mentality of one person does 17 jobs.
Right.
Go to Japan, fly in. There's a person when your luggage comes down and they're sorting your luggage for you, right? That's a job. That's contributing.
Right.
Okay. Hey, if you really want to go to something like this, then that's great. Then what do they have on these trains? Conductors.
Yeah.
They have ticket takers. They got all kinds of people walking around.
Yes.
Get someone to ride the bus. Have a bus escort. Have a person on the bus that can help with situations like that. Look at this guy here. You have the little barrier. That's great. I could easily stab him in the kidney, in the liver, even in the leg, and it's going to cause a reaction where that bus is going to go maybe into someone standing at the bus stop. Who knows? I mean, that's happened before too. Here's some images of how they want to retrofit. Well, I can say, yeah, I'd be uncomfortable in that too, because it's so tight, and it really doesn't give me a lot of protection to begin with.
No, it doesn't. It's very easy to get around, and like you said, it's very constrictive from a personal movement and space perspective. And look, like if you have to get out of that really quick, are you able to jump out of that super fast? I mean,
yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, look at this one. This is one in Japan. This is the point and speak technique that they're doing. But again, what we do defensive driver training all the time, Matt. And what do we always say? Like, no distractions.
Right.
Keep your eyes on the road. Understand where you're going. Know your path of travel.
Right.
Operate. Be able to. Well, how do you do that when you got 30 or 40 passengers screaming and yelling and acting up and everything else?
Right.
And
buses get like that.
Buses get like that.
You get a lot.
Rowdy.
There's a hubbub of noise that's going on.
I remember going to see Robert Plant in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. Okay. A friend of mine had called into the radio station. This is going back when I lived in Nebraska. Okay.
Okay.
So this is a 3-hour one-way tour. Sounds like Gilligan's Island here.
Yeah.
But it's a 3-hour one-way tour. She calls into the radio station and wins these tickets to go see Robert Plant. Right.
Nice.
And I'm like, that's cool. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
So, but I had back then I wasn't as confident in my ability to carry myself.
Right.
Growing up in St. Louis, there's always these little altercations that kind of happen there. It's a very rough environment.
Right.
But anyway, get on this bus, and these idiots going to a rock concert on a bus. Hey, let's drink and party and do these drugs. They turned
it into a party bus.
Oh my God. I don't know what drugs they took, but these two idiots were freaking out, going crazy, and I'm just like, I just want to get there and get home safely.
Right. Right.
And the whole time, I mean, they had 3 or 4 people that were running us down there for this concert, but it was the worst thing in the world, man. And same thing when I went to San Francisco, and with my former wife and I went there with Madison, for vacation once. Oh, let's ride the bus.
No. Really? Greyhound?
No. The Muni bus up there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Go from the hotel to the park.
Of course.
It's like, this is disgusting. It's disgusting. And I don't mean to seem like an elite here.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you're stepping in urine and feces, and there's people coughing and hacking. It's just not a pleasant environment. I can't imagine being a bus driver dealing with that all day, every day.
Yeah.
Look, forget about those few that go, I don't feel comfortable. Just cordon off the entire front of the bus so that they can focus and operate. And you know what? We need some new bus designs.
Right.
We need to think about security. We know, again, back to OSHA, we have a recognized hazard.
Yes.
Right? We're operating a motor vehicle. You have to provide your employees with the proper level of safety when doing that. Right. Analyze it. Do your hazard assessment. What is the hazards there? Right. And look it up. These things happen a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like it doesn't. It's once in a lifetime.
No, these things, these things happen quite a lot, and you need to be prepared for them. And honestly, it comes back to training as well. We already talked about having the de-escalation training. And
de-escalation huge.
Is a massive thing, but also just having kind of a situational awareness of, because you're going to be focused on the road, but at the same time, you do still kind of have to have an idea of what's going on in the bus, you know? So there could be any number of situations that could come up, and it needs training to handle any of those. You might have someone have a heart attack, or need to do first aid in the moment. You might have to, again, hopefully it wouldn't come to this, but if you have to end up getting physical, do you have training in how to handle that?
No. Not unless they're getting it on their own.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate part, because it is a very real threat.
Yes.
It's a real hazard, and having the ability for de-escalation techniques, some of the hands-on techniques, which are to be non-threatening and to put people down in a controlled way without harming them, is important.
Absolutely.
And again, I took a little time off from Krav Maga, because we moved our offices, we moved a bunch of things. Yeah. Just going back, the perishable skills, they deteriorate very quickly.
Yes, they do.
That's why, firearm qualifications are so important. The hands-on training is so important. The mental de-escalation training is so important.
Yeah.
You got to do this on a routine basis, But I think you got to start looking at some of your buses and really taking that cabin design to a new level, and making sure that your operators are safe, right, and that they're following the rules, but also good defensive driving. That's important. So
obviously, that's very key.
Very key. All right. Well, just so you know, if you're watching this on our article, we also have this wonderful YouTube channel, which has all kinds of goodies on it. All kinds of goodies. A lot of our episodes, and then also a lot of our little training snippets. So take a piece of our training. We put it out there so you can check it all out. Don't forget, contact us if you want to do situational awareness training, active shooter training, all that kind of stuff. We do all of it. We'd be happy to train you up. Actually, our trainer is actually working with border control.
Is he? Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And those, and back to the perishable skills. He's like, they're really good at using their weapons, but they're terrible at everything else. So,
jeez.
But again, it goes back to the training. What do you train with?
Right.
You're not doing a lot of hands-on, de-escalation and control, arrest and control techniques.
Right.
So those are things that you got to do often. All right. We'll see you next time on the Risk Control Show.